What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit, your once a week frustrate your GM / make sure you're always rolling with advantage when you attack your players. I think you can see Achilles moving under the blanket. He was really good last night at Kingmaker, so I don't want to shout and have him wake up and ruin the stream. Anyway, John would like me to take the Gambler of Final Fantasy D20 and convert it over as close as possible to first-party Pathfinder. He and I are in a patron game that's not on camera right now, and what can I say except we've been dying a lot. So we need some alts, some real good alts, some alts that are rolling with advantage a lot, and we got it here for you. If you're liking what you're seeing, be sure to like, subscribe, and ding the bell. Today, this episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit was brought to you in part by our newest patron, and we've got a lot of them. Since I'm only doing one video a week right now, well, with the, 5 patron games I'm running, business is good. What can I say? I'm not shouting all of you out as much as I could be, but nevertheless, War 10 CK 70. That's probably supposed to say Warlock 70. Do you leet speak, bruh? They leet speak. And thank you for your support, my friend. Now, here we go. So we played Final Fantasy D20 for a little while on the channel. Second edition came out, and we did some second edition stuff. But that doesn't mean that I don't think that FFD20 and the people who put it together haven't put together a fun, balanced, if more powerful than Paizo's stuff, and true to the lore conversion of all your favorite Final Fantasy games to the tabletop, and you 10 out of 10 should check it out. The vanilla Gambler of FFD20 was all about tweaking the odds to their favor. They got some rogue stuff, they got some charisma to attack and damage stuff, could throw cards for value, and there might or might not have been an archetype that threw explodey boom boom cards. And you can follow this card right up here if you want to learn how to do specifically that in Pathfinder. And yes, disclaimer, the "is this your card" Google sheet did get broken when I screwed up and put a personal build on it. That's one of the first things I'll do when I have a little more time, namely at the end of March when my rank goes down and I can go find me an editor so I can actually do stuff other than min-maxing for fun and profit on BDG, is fix that sheet. But I digress. Today, we're more so looking at the ability to re-roll dice. Rolling with advantage is very powerful. You can follow this card right up here and listen to me rant about why I think the witch is unbalanced. But that's what today's build is all about. Getting as much redundancy on roll twice, take the better, or roll twice and accept the second, even if it's worse, because that's about the only way we can simulate the gambler's ability to just have a giant re-roll pool. Anywho, today's race, you hate to see it, but it's a gnome. I know, right? Who am I and what have I done with me? But if we retrain defensive training and hatred, and I bet you're not using those too much unless you're playing Giant Slayer, for Eternal Hope, we get a once per day after rolling a 1, you can re-roll and use the second result. The +2 on saves against fear and despair is also neat. Also, what the hell is a despair effect? But, rules as written, an attack roll and a save will fail on the roll of a natural 1. This is really great in the early game before some of our hexes, yeah, you heard me right, come online, and if we happen to be shields down on cackling, yeah, heard me right there. I'm betraying everything I love and know. We can make sure we just don't die to bad RNG. And I guess one thing I should point out is I'm not sure today if I've fortuned myself, roll to attack, roll a 1 twice. Can I then Eternal Hope for another chance? I'm not super sure. Anyway, for today's traits, it's gonna be Magical Knack, choosing the Magus, because we're gonna be dipping around a bunch. Keeping our caster level online doesn't hurt. And Fate's Favored. Anytime you're under a luck bonus, increase that bonus by 1, because some of our Magus stuff will in fact give us a luck bonus. There's no divine favor here necessarily, but I mean, you're charisma based, find a wand, you'll be fine. The classes today will be 2 levels of paladin, because we're charisma based and we gotta get our charisma to saves, 1 level of monk, 1 level of sorcerer, and 16 levels of magus. Magus being our primary, dare I say it, favored class. For our archetypes today, the paladin will be completely vanilla, but the monk will take Scaled Fist and Weapon Adept. Scaled Fist, of course, lets us track all of our stuff off charisma instead of wisdom, and y'all have heard me say it a million times, you can get a much higher armor class with a high dexterity, charisma, and magic with a dip into monk, and Weapon Adept gives us as a level 1 bonus feat, Perfect Strike. It's like Stunning Fist, except rolling with advantage. Or, really good. The Magus will take 2 archetypes as well. Since we're so charisma focused, we will be running into Eldritch Sion. The Eldritch Sion gets a bloodline like a Blood Rager, is charisma based, not intelligence based. Some of the things like the Arcane pool, spell combat come on a little slower for the Eldritch Sion, but again, it's a little more ability score synergy, and the bloodline actually plays into what we want to do. Hexcrafter gets a Magus a Hex at level 4 instead of spell recall, and then when you're choosing Magus Arcana, you can choose Hexes instead. I knew we wanted to be in melee for this build, but I also knew that if we wanted to emulate the Gambler's ability to reroll for themselves a bunch, we would need the Fortune Hex. I don't really think there's a class that does it better. And as a disclaimer now, yes, I've gone over how powerful Fortune, Misfortune, Cackle, Slumber are. We are only taking Fortune and Cackle from that list, and we're only, in theory, taking Cackle to cackle for ourselves. Can you buff out the entire party? Sure, you certainly can. Is it a good idea from an optimized standpoint? Yes. But I still feel that if the entire party is rolling with advantage, sometimes for entire combats, well, it can make things a little unbalanced. I digress. Our sorcerer will be cross-blooded, and it will be both orc and destined this time. Really, the sorcerer level is just the level at the end to, if you get to 20th, why not get +1 damage per die rolled when you're shocking, grasping, and things. The destined side for sorcerer is just there to make it mesh with the destined bloodline from Eldritch Sion, which does a lot of things this build loves. At first level, as a free action up to thrice per day, you can grant yourself an insight bonus equal to half your level on a melee attack. At 4th, you get a +1 luck bonus to AC and saves, and that's why Fate's Favored is a thing. Defy Death is okay, but I'm not super worried about it. Mostly it's Certain Strike, rerolling an attack roll once during a Blood Rage. Gotta take the second even if it's worse, but I mean, if you rolled a 2, you might as well try. Certain Strike has us rerolling once during a Blood Rage, quote unquote. Since ours is a state of mystic focus that lasts for 2 rounds, we'll be toggling quite a lot more than most things would be. So once per round, every 2 rounds, essentially. Wow, I just sold myself on that state of mystic focus. In that scenario, that ain't horrible. And Unstoppable at 16th level, any critical threat we score is automatically confirmed. Of course, you're wanting to run around with. Our weapon of choice will probably be a Wave Blade, maybe an Urumi, if you want to effortless lace in, especially if the GM will let you have the old Urumi, which had reach. Crits only confirm on you if the second result is a natural 20, that's nice and all, but really it's just hedging our bets because remember, a keen 18 to 20 weapon is rolling in its threat range about 50% of the time if you are rolling with advantage. Anyway, end rant, let's talk some feats. As always, if you'd like to see this broken down a little more, patronage at any tier will get you access to a Google Sheet this character is written on. At level 1, we get Weapon Finesse because the Taxmans come for us, and Perfect Strike because, again, rolling with advantage, very nice. At 3rd level, we'll take Piranha Strike because at this point we're basically just a big dumb marshal. We haven't hit our Magus levels yet, we're just getting the dips out of the way first. No reason to not grab that now. At level 5, we will take Weapon Focus, choosing either the Urumi or the Wave Blade, the monk weapon of your choice, basically. Then at level 7, after the Magus stuff has already started to come online, we'll take Extra Arcana for Arcane Accuracy. As a swift action, get your Charisma to attack rolls, not your Intelligence, because we're in Eldritch Sion. For that 1d4, maybe 1d6 times you don't run into something that can be smote. We've got our first bonus Magus feat. At level 8, we'll grab Intensify spell. We won't talk in super depth about the shocking grasp shenanigans you can get up to. Again, that's its own video. A video that probably in the month of March we'll take another look at because what can I say except that video's a couple years old now. God, we've been at this a while. Then at 9th level, we'll go ahead and grab Vital Strike. Vital Strike is a little awkward on the Magus who's spell striking because you're already using a standard action to cast your touch spell, then deliver it through the pointy end of your weapon. but if you're out of spells, it's still the standard action swing that looks really good on someone who, as a move action, is probably cackling to keep a fortune hex up on themselves. One attack per round with advantage is, strictly speaking, better than someone rolling 6 attacks and just hoping to roll high. On balance, this will perform better, and the days will exist where you run out of spell slots, or the things you're fighting have arbitrarily high spell resistance, or resistance to the element you've spec'd into. Haven't talked about this one in a while, but next up, Aesthetic Style. Choose one weapon from the Monk Fighter weapon group. While using this style and wielding it, you can apply the effects that have improved unarmed strike as a prereq, as well as effects that augment an unarmed strike as if attacks with the weapons were unarmed attacks. That one gets better as we level. But next up, we'll go ahead and grab Devastating Strike before we level up the aesthetic stuff. You might flip-flop Aesthetic Style with Devastating Strike, but when using Vital Strike improved or greater, you get a +2 bonus on each extra weapon damage dice roll those feats grant, a max of +6. This bonus damage is multiplied on a critical hit, so there's no reason to not. The ceiling of +6 is kind of sad, but still, extra damage is extra damage. Hard to say no. Next, Aesthetic Form will allow you to use the chosen melee weapon with any class ability that can be used with an unarmed strike, and you're treated as a monk level with a level equal to your character level. For determining the number of times per day, you can use feats with uses per day, such as Stunning Fist or Perfect Strike. Getting some more, that's not bad. It's just more advantage for us. And then after Improved Vital Strike, our last feat, Aesthetic Strike, lets you use the unarmed strike damage of a monk 4 levels lower than your character level, instead of the base damage for your chosen weapon. So that would put us at a 16th level small monk swinging with a 2d6 15 to 20 times 2 weapon. Not bad. Especially with Improved Vital Strike turning that into 6d6 and then adding 6 extra on from Devastating Strike. And then all the dice from your spell strikes on top of that. You're like a rogue, just more shocking. For our Arcana / Hexes, first up, since we can't quite get to the hexes as fast as I'd like to, we'll take Flamboyant Arcana, which gives us opportune parry and riposte like a swashbuckler. It also means you should probably grab extra Arcane pool as many times as you can get capstone feats onto the training enchantment, because we'll go through them real quick, because Flamboyant Arcana won't let us regenerate our Arcane pool like it's panache, so we'll just want to have as much as we can. We'll take Fortune next. Of course, a creature within 30 feet, probably most of the time us, can re-roll an ability check, attack roll, saving throw, or skill check and take the higher. If you can't keep this cackled on, it eventually will expire. Eventually you can't benefit for 24 more hours, but cackle's right behind it, which extends the duration of the hex by a round. Of course, that then means you can move action cackle, standard action attack, or move action cackle, standard action move to double move and just stay advantaged forever. Though the rogue will be mad you've blown his stealth approach by laughing maniacally. Since I didn't want to take Misfortune or Slumber or Evil Eye or any of the powerful debuff stuff on this one, decided to shake it up a little bit. The next hex is called Ice Plant, which gives you and your familiar a +2 natural armor bonus and the constant effects of Endure Elements. That leaves your skin thick and stiff to the touch, but also it's a +2 to natural armor and you're in melee a bunch. No reason to not. Hasted Assault comes next if you'd rather spend a point from the Arcane pool than a spell slot to haste. Honestly, again, a little bit of redundancy doesn't look bad with how powerful haste is. It's a weird interaction considering we're trying to Vital Strike and Spell Strike more than anything, but even just the buff to your move speed so you can keep everybody within 30 feet of you is, again, not horrible. We'll grab the Arcana to get us a familiar last. That familiar will have the Emissary archetype, so it can domain influence from the luck domain. Since we're probably lawful good as a paladin, that probably pushes you to Shaylin, but work with your GM. Once per day, all the D20s rolling with advantage is just more redundancy to make sure this build is rolling with advantage as constantly as possible. Before we round it out, for some quick key spells and magic items, of course, the Cackling Hag's Blouse, letting you cackle as a swift sometimes, is staple to the build. The Spell Soaring enchantment is as well, because what's better than a Shocking Grasp? Well, 2 of them. But there are a couple spells we don't talk about as much that are pretty good for this character. First things first, Fallback Strategy, a first level spell that lasts for minutes per level or until discharged. When this spell is active, you may re-roll 1 attack roll, combat maneuver check, which rules as written are attack rolls. I guess that language is there in case you get grappled, or skill check. Before the result of the roll is known, you must take the result even if it's worse. Once you use the re-roll, the spell ends. Say it with me, kids. Redundancy. Expeditious Retreat is a spell we also don't talk about as much as we could, but it's a first level Magus spell that would increase our base speed by 30 feet, which would take the gnome's slow speed up to 50. Again, Black Dragon Gaming does not condone fortuning the entire party, unless, of course, you want the GM to find the things that you must roll a 15 plus to hit. But if you decide to go that route, keeping everyone within 30 feet of you is important, and being fast can be key to that. Lastly, again, the Flame variant of the Amulet of the Spirits, giving something vulnerability to fire, bonus points if you can change the element of that around to match your character, means that you're doing more damage at the end. Now, honorable mention to a feat I almost put on here. God, if you could fit Weapon of the Chosen on, it taxes you really sadly to eventually at greater when you make an attack using the attack action, you're rolling with advantage. That almost made the cut over Aesthetic Strike. Almost. But I think we have enough redundancy here. Enough to, at the end of the day, just vomit perfect strikes. Leave certain strike for, like, if you ever just need that extra one, hey, it's there. Then use Fortune if you're parrying or suddenly exposed to a will save, or Eternal Hope if you fail really badly at a will save your character wasn't necessarily aware of. This should have you rolling with advantage through the entire combat, but what do y'all think? Have we rolled this up? Are we playing this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. Next week, we had a little more positive feedback from our Dimensional Dervish build, since I swung it as building Nightcrawler, so I guess you guys like conversions from IRL things into the tabletop world. Why not? Let's do another one. By patron request, we're building Wolverine next week. Fastball specials coming at you next week. See you then.